For the benefit of those who do not know object-oriented programming in Python, let me give a very basic information about classes and instances. And we'll learn more about them to the extent necessary in almost all the lessons of this course, because classes are everywhere. So the most common and simplest definition you hear about classes is this. A class is like a reusable blueprint that has a set of properties and methods. And a class can be accessed by creating instances of that class. Well, it's better explained using an example. So here I created a Python file called classy.py and I wrote a simple class called math. We can create a class using the keyword class, and by convention the first letter of the class name is capitalized. The variable you see here is called a class variable because we defined it inside the class but outside of any function or method. And down below I wrote a couple of very simple functions. In object-oriented programming, functions are called methods. Both these methods take two numbers as arguments. The first one adds these two numbers and the second one multiplies them. Let's now import this class into the Python console so that we can work with it. So from classy, import math. Classy is the name of the module or Python file and math is the name of our class. To access the properties and methods of a class, we need to create instances of the class. So let's create an instance or a variable called inst and assign the class to it. This instance now has access to all the contents of the class. We can say this by using the Python's dir method. The dir function will display all the properties and methods available inside our math class. The attributes with double underscores on either side are used by Python internally. For now, we don't need to worry much about them. And we can also see the properties and methods that we created. In this case, they are the add and multiply methods and also the class variable nodes. To access the methods or properties, we can use the object.attribute notation. In our example, the variable inst is the object and the attribute can be anything inside the math class. For example, using the inst.nodes, we can access the class variable. Inst.add, which takes two numbers, will give us access to the add method. And so is the case with inst.multiply. And if we check the type of this instance, it says this is of type class and belongs to a module called classy, which is nothing but our Python file. And the name of the class is math. So for now, this is all we need to know. And as I said, we'll explore more about classes in almost all the lessons. Let's now go back to our basic Flask application that we have seen before and find out how this knowledge is useful to understand Flask applications. So here is the simple Flask application that we have seen in the previous lesson. I renamed this Python file as run.py. This program contains three parts to it. At the top, we import all the libraries or extensions we need. And here we are importing the Flask class from a module which is also called Flask. The one with the small f is a module or Python file, and the one with capital F is the class. If you recall from our earlier example, this is exactly same as importing the math class from the classy.py module. Then we write the actual code in the middle, and lastly we define how we intend to run this program. As discussed before, the way we make use of any class is by creating instances of it. Here we are creating an instance or a variable called app and assign the class to it like we did before. This variable app is now our Flask application instance. This means we can access all the properties and methods that are available in the class Flask. And sometimes instances take arguments. In this case, we pass the variable double_name, which is a special Python variable, and it is generally set to a value called double_main, as you can see here at the bottom. So there are two ways of running any Python file or module. The first one, we can run it directly as we are doing it right now in this example, or we import it into another file and then execute it. Using this if block, we are telling the program that we intend to run the code directly using this run.py file instead of importing it. So that's all there to it. Nothing to be confused much about this statement. Now let's see the main part of the program. Our code in the middle further has two components. The first one is the route. It is also called as a decorator in Python. And the second one is the function, which is sitting right below the route. Within the brackets of this route, we see a / in quotes. This essentially means the home page or the root of any web application. As an example, this could be something like google.com. We don't need to type the / when we visit any website because it's passed implicitly. So when a user visits this path, which is nothing but the home page of our Hello Flask application, then whatever code that's written inside this function will be executed. And in this example function, we are simply asking the program to display a Hello Flask message in a browser when the user visits this root URL. The debug option here displays some useful messages about our Flask application, and we'll learn more about this later. To execute this file, simply type Python and the file name in the command line. Now we can see that our server is up and running at this address provided by Flask. Using this address, we can run and test our programs locally. Now let's open the browser and type or paste this in the address bar. So there is the Hello Flask message that's defined inside our function, and that is our very first Flask application. So to wrap this up, when the user types this address in the browser, Flask checks if such path or route exists in our program. If found, the function that is sitting right underneath that route is executed, and the output is sent to the browser as defined in the function. In our example, it's just a string called Hello Flask. So this is how the control flows no matter how big or complex a Flask application is. Alright, so that's it for this lesson. We'll see a lot more complex examples in the upcoming lessons. Take a break if you have to, and I'll see you in the next lesson.